morning from here on the Thai farm. I should say good chilly morning here on the Thai farm. I had to wait to come outside so it'll get warm up a little bit. It's like 7:30. My room with a view. You can see that sun. That's a 7:30. Excellent. I think it's 7:40 now. Unobstructed. That's why I put this bench right here. That's why I made this vine, although the vine's at hand. But yeah, man, I used to love going to the beach, and you know, the feeling of, I think, going to the beach and, you know, digging a hole in the sand and sitting in it and just letting the sun bake your face when your eyes are closed. It was a good feeling. All skin cancer aside, but yeah. Man, this coffee's hot, hot. But, and I had a dream last night about the beach. You know, I've chased islands and shorelines my whole life, really. Lived as close as I could. Out here, it's farther away. It's farthest away, I think, that I've lived from the coastline in forever, probably. But I saw a picture too. I was reminded, actually not a picture, a thumbnail from early last year. I would do videos in series. I had like a series 1, which was some, I remember series 2, and then series 3, and I think the third series was supposed to be a collection of tales that I had from islands that I visited. And so the last one, that's what I saw the thumbnail, and then I remembered that I never told the tale about my travels to Jamaica. And I don't know how many times I went there, but my mom used to live in Florida during my college years, and I would, you know, every spring break, summer break, Christmas break, whatever, that was my opportunity to leave the country. And if not, if it wasn't in the budget for like a European vacation, then I would fly or drive a rental car or whatever all the way to Florida from California and hang out with my mom, you know, just for a day or two, and then get on a plane or a boat and go to an island in the Caribbean. A lot of different islands, but this one particular time in Jamaica, this is back when, you know, Jamaica certainly wasn't, I don't think, as dangerous maybe as it seems to be now, like all islands probably. And but it was also kind of remote. You know, I intentionally picked a kind of the end of the island where it was a little bit more remote, which was Negril, is the town. And the only really two big hotels or what are big things out there were Club Med, which, you know, they pick this. Now Club Med hotels are probably, you know, 20 stories tall and all this sort of stuff, but it was a smaller version. It was Club Med, and you know, these are all inclusive. You can have all your drinks and food and everything, one price, right on the beach. That was awesome. And then next to it was another club. It was called Hedonism, which was basically the same thing, only kind of like, you know, life and wife swapping kind of thing, you know, sex club almost. But no, I wasn't staying there. I actually stayed at some shack or something, you know, a little one level no-tell motel kind of place. It was booked as a resort, but I remember arriving. It was just an awesome time, and I think I got a bus ride to where the hotel was, and this guy, rickety bus, you know, teetering and stuff, and of course he made the traditional stop at you know, probably an uncle's house. Yeah, I gotta stop here, I'm gonna take a leak. And yeah, my uncle sells stuff too. He sells food and stuff. You know, some people got off the bus, you know. Oh yes, now I'm remembering, and I'll probably remember a few things as I retell this story. That bus driver had a big old fat doobie, and he was just driving the bus smoking, just the biggest fatty I had seen, you know, in recent years, whatever. And it was classic. I'm like, yeah, I'm in Jamaica. It's kind of like why I came there too, but so then we got back on the bus or whatever. Everybody got back on the bus and continued. And then I think once I got to the little hotel that I was staying at, you know, of course there'd be motor scooter rentals out there, and I got a scooter and would, you know, race up and down the little narrow road along it was actually along a cliff line. So that side in the grill had, I mean, the Hedonism and Club Med were down kind of on the flat end before you get there, so they're right on the beach. But oh, look at that! Oh, you missed it. You see that big old? That's like a you know, a whatever, one of them eagles or something, man. He just picked up a big old rat. I could see it hanging down. I don't know if it was biting him or what, but he dropped it back in the dirt over there. Whoa, I'm just sitting here, you know. Anyway, back to the beach. So I got the scooter to go up and down, and of course, you know, what's, I think one of the things that Jamaica was kind of famous for, or whatever, iconic, was jerk chicken. Basically roadside vendors, you know, grabbing chickens and just chopping them like whatever, and then bam, deep frying them or filling them with this, you know, their own rub or whatever, seasoning, massive, you know, seasoning, and deep frying it or whatever, and or no, barbecue, I think, and then, you know, that was it, man. You just buy it up. So jerk chicken was the main staple of my diet while I was in there. But this one day I was right near the place where I was staying, and I was driving along the cliffs, and on my right side by the cliff there was an old shack, you know, well, it was basically your old typical kind of pala or sala, you know, bamboo hut, and there was an American guy in there, just a small square counter like a bar, and he was back there, old fat guy, and he basically had a couple coolers full of cold beer and nothing else really. I mean, you could get jerk chicken and all that, bring your food there, whatever, but you just pull off. And I thought, oh, I'll have a beer. So I saw the guy, I was like, hey, what's up? And then started talking to him, and turns out he was from California. He was he owned 50% of a construction company, and he had come to Jamaica, you know, quite a number of years before that, I guess, when it was probably even more rural. Then it was like, oh, I love this place. And so he went back to California, sold his 50% of the business, and took all the money, came to Jamaica, and bought that land. Actually, he bought 3 plots right next to each other along that cliff, and then the road was come through, and then the other 3 plots on the other side of the road. I don't know if it was 3 separated by a road or if it was 6, but I knew he owned the land on both sides of the road, you know, 3 plots. And on one of them, he hadn't developed anything. On one of them was just this bamboo hut, and he would go across the street to his house, which was, you know, probably a tin roof house, if I remember. It's concrete, but tin roof. And, you know, get his coolers and bring them across the street and sell beers to anybody who went by, you know, tourists or whatever. And and I thought that was just the coolest thing. I was like, dude, I could do this. And he was telling me the story about how he, you know, came here and did that, or came there and did that, and he was married to a beautiful Jamaican woman, young woman, and he had like 3 or 4 or 5 bungalows in the back of his property over there too. I guess he had another Jamaican wife and kids with both of them or something, but he was trippy. But he had a wicked limp, you know, and I was like, dude, what's up? How'd you hurt yourself, whatever? And he's all, well, he liked to brag about it basically, but told me the story about how he, after he first came there and, you know, had all this money and stuff, he either bought a Harley or he brought a Harley to the island. And he was, you know, he was a bit of an alcoholic probably, hence opening a bar. And he was racing his Harley around or whatever, and he crashed. And when he crashed, he severed his foot. Like he said, he severed his foot off above the ankle, but you know, like the skin on that side was still attached, so it was pretty much chopped right off, ripped right off. But he didn't want to lose the foot, you know. And of course, on islands, if you don't know this, you should be aware of it. If you're out just about any island out there, they do not have microsurgery units or anything. Amputation is the #1 recourse of bad breaks. And so they were like, dude, you know, you're gonna have to cut the foot off. He's like, no, 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 no. And so he called somebody he knew, who called somebody that they knew, whatever. And evidently there was a doctor in New York, a surgeon in New York, that brought his bag with him, flew from New York to Jamaica, like post haste, and reattached his foot in trade for one of the plots of land on the cliff, the one furthest from him. So he traded one of those pieces of land for the surgeon to come down and save his foot, which he saved his foot, although it was, you know, it's crooked, but he said at least he still had his foot, and he was happy with that. And so I was just, you know, I was just going, whoa, dude. And that guy, the doctor, whatever, he hadn't developed the land or anything. It was still undeveloped. Everything was kind of undeveloped back there. And so we were sitting there having a chat, and I asked him, well, do you get high, or are you smoking pot every day, or what? He goes, oh, when I first came here I used to, but not so much anymore. He goes, well, you want some? I mean, like, I was like, yeah, sure. What's up, you know? What's up with the pot scene? And this, I don't know if he waved across the street or whatever, but this young Jamaican kid, real good looking kid, he was young, probably, I don't know, he was probably 17 or something, came and sat at the bar and he said, oh, hey, what's up? And he had a really strong Jamaican accent that the bartender guy could understand. I actually couldn't even hardly understand it. But he's like, yeah, and he goes, so he runs back across the street, and a minute later comes back and brings 3 long spears. There's just a total bud, tight bud, 3 long spears, and just kind of set it in front of me on the counter of the you know, little shack there. And I was like, what? And I mean, I didn't even know what to do, you know. So, and then the guy behind the counter, the American guy, he had a can with papers in it, whatever. And so, I mean, I didn't even, you know, I didn't crumble up or anything. I think I remember I just took an end and broke it off, and then took a couple papers and stuck them together, and then rolled it around and had this big old fat, you know, obnoxious, ridiculously looking joint, you know, they're all laughing about. And I, you know, took a couple puffs off of it, you know. But this kid, so I was like, hey, how much? And he's, oh, you can have it. You know, I'm like, what? And so it's just like, you know, give you that was probably 2 ounces or something. I don't know, 4 ounces or whatever right there. And I was like, damn. Anyway, I thought that was very cool. The kid was really cool. And so then later, actually, over the next few days, I'd see that kid, and he'd take me, go look at this place, or go show me this place, you know, and that. And he came and picked me up on the scooter and took me to it was like a club or a party, right? It's kind of a little bit on the hill, and I think it was really somebody's house that, you know, they turned into a club that night or whatever, and were charging or whatever. And it was late. And he's all, just, you know, you'll be all right, just stay close. I'm like, all right. And but I was young and I could take care of myself. I'm all right. But I remember on the road, we passed this one girl that was standing like on the side of the road. And I don't know if you know who Grace Slick is, but this girl, she was great slick all the way, man. I was like, holy moly, that girl's beautiful. And he was like, yeah, you know, no, she's, and he had a Jamaican name for it. I don't know what that meant, but it's something like a witch or a danger or something like that. Anyway, we went to the house and had a club and had a couple beers and like this, and there was some nefarious kind of looking guys, and there was a lot of, I think they starting to have some drugs going around, like cocaine and stuff like that, you know. But we kind of a little bit hung out outside in front of the house a little bit, and then after a short time, that girl actually came to the party and came into the house, and when he saw her, he was like, dude, we're out of here. But I thought, was that your old girlfriend or something? But no, he was genuinely like, this girl is kind of like voodoo bad, you get the hell out of here. But she was, man, Google Grace Slick and you'll see what she looked like. And she had super red lipstick on too. Amazing. But anyway, another day, oh, by the way, his name was Preston. And we went, I wanted to see like the fields of ganja, right? The big old marijuana fields. And so he's like, yeah, we'll go. So he took me on the motor scooter, and we went up into this village, you know, like in the hills. And when we entered, it was crazy, man. But when we entered the village, all these little kids came running out, you know, they would come off the porches or whatever, their little shacks and stuff, and they would come running up to him, to us on the motorbike. I figured, well, you know, because you got the tourist, the little Americano on the bike or something. But anyway, they were running up and they would go, Preston Mon. They were saying Preston Mon, but to me, it sounded like they were saying President Man, President Man, President Man. And I was like, President? What's this guy, the president of the village or something? He's the chief or something? He's only like a 17 maybe or something. And they all come run up, and then he would just stop the bike and he'd bust out some cash and he'd give them like Jamaican dollars, right? He'd give them money, and they'd run back up to the porch, and maybe old grandma or something sitting there, and they'd give the money to her and she'd like wave to him. And he did this 3, 4, 5, 6 times on the way up the hill. So it was kind of like they loved this guy. He was kind of funding the village, you know, and later I would, you know, it would reveal itself really that basically he was selling pot to tourists, and that's where he was making money, and he would bring back the money to the village. And but we got all the way up into the hills, and into all I could see was just like a rolling hills of vast pot farm, and these plants were these back in this is in the 80s. This is when plants were like, these things were like 16 feet tall, weeping over like this, you know. And all as far as I could see, I was like, whoa. And we came around the corner into this one place, when, you know, opening or whatever, and there was a guy there, you know, your typical Rastafarian guy. He had, or I should probably say atypical, because this guy, he had dreads all the way down to like the bottom of his calves, you know, almost to his ankles, and they're all matted and heavy. They're probably 100 extra pounds of dreads right there, and he was very, you know, disheveled, but he was full on hardcore, eyes bleeding like he was been stoned to the bejesus his whole life or whatever. And there's a campfire, just rocks and stuff, you know, and a couple of little stools that he had sat on, but he had a pot on the fire, you know, and it was just this much, probably loaded with black tar resin, just bubbling in there, you know, and he had a big long pipe, and he was just like, I don't know, he would stick the pipe and like tap it on the black tar, and it would fill or whatever, and then he would just smoke the crap out of it. And I was like, oh my God, that stuff was deadly. And they're like, oh, you gotta smoke. I'm like, yeah. And so I'm like, all right. So like I took one hit, you know, but then as it got passed back and forth, the other hits, I just faked it, because I knew that if I smoked like this, I don't know, I'd probably be unconscious, and or drift off into a third world or something. Then we went walking through the, you know, the plants, checking them out and stuff, and you could grab it like, you could grab a plant like this near the top, and when you took your hand off, it would kind of rip off, and your hand was just full of all the leaves and the tar, because it was just sticky. And I remember doing that and going, dang, this is amazing. But what the guy would do is he'd have a string, and he would tie a string about 2 or 3 inches into the top of the bud as the plant hung over, and then he'd have like a coconut shell and would hang down below. So the plant would come over, and this shit would literally drip into the coconut shell, the resin, the THC, the resin would drip into the coconut shell from these plants. That's how mature they were. And then he would scrape that stuff out, and that's probably what was in there boiling. And I was just going, oh my God, this is the experience, that I thought about, And we had a good time, and I think I took some pictures, and I don't know if I have those pictures anymore, but I did take a couple pictures. I had one picture of that Rasta guy, and in the plant field, and we had a good time, and it was just a great trip. And this is before cell phones and all that, and then even on subsequent trips, Preston was still a very well-known guy. I thought he was going to, by the time he was 20, I think he was, or 19, he was probably going to be like a congressman or something. He was so well-known. And then I remember being at home in California one day. I don't know who it was, but later I would hear that he was shot and killed. And so I think he was only 19 by then, not even 20 probably. He was in a phone booth, because back then, we only had like phone booths, whatever. That's probably where he did most of his deals. So he got somebody rolled up on a scooter and pow, and shot and killed him. And I remember feeling so heartbroken, because he was such a good soul, this kid. And yeah, it was sad. I remember talking to the bartender guy about it the next time I went. And by the way, yes, that shack where the guy had built his little, bamboo hut or whatever, right in back of his bamboo hut, it was probably another, I'm gonna say, about 40, 50 feet to the actual cliff, right? And then it was about 30 feet down to the cove of water. And so just right in back of his hut, there was a big old hole in the reef. It wasn't big, and it was just a little bit bigger than your body, and that hole went down through the reef, or through that cliff, into the water that would come underneath. So in low tide, you could dive off the cliff, swim underneath, and he had a rope. Actually, it was a piece of rope with knots. It wasn't even a ladder. It was tied to a big rock. And so you could swim up there, and you would grab that rope, and then you would pull yourself up, through the rope, wheel yourself up through the hole, and then come back out at the bar. And sure enough, of course, after a beer or two or whatever, I don't know, maybe I wasn't drinking, maybe I thought I shouldn't drink, but I did. I dove off. I think first I actually went down the rope to see where it was and see how deep or whatever, that kind of thing, checking it out, because it was all blue kind of lagoon. The reef was out there, in the lagoon, and then the cliff line. So I just jump off into the water and swim underneath the cave and find the rope, because it was dark, and find the rope, and then pull myself up and climb up, and have a drink or whatever. And oh man, it was a good time. I loved doing that. And I did it a number of times. Some of them were sketchier than others, because the tide was closer. I'm like, wait a minute, where's the rope? Where's the rope? But and on that note, later I would hear that he actually died. But I guess he just drank too much one day, and dove off, and maybe he tried to come up, or maybe he hit the water and passed out or whatever. But it was his wife, I think, that shared that he drowned. Bummer in the summer, man. Gotta be careful when you go out there. Now, I bet you if I went there now, there'd probably be a big old hotel right there. That hole down to there would probably be exploited. It's probably bigger, and there's a slide that goes to it or whatever. But there was pretty cool, man. You hear a lot of crazy stuff about Jamaica nowadays. That's mostly in the big city. I think the grill is probably all developed, well developed now too. Probably condo enterprises out there and this and that, but there are still many islands out there that are undeveloped that are probably pretty cool to visit. I always looked for the ones that were kind of less developed. Just seemed to be a lot more fun when it's undeveloped. Although, you know, and Club Med, they got, you know, Club Med got in early on the party game, you know, picking key destinations, probably got land leases for nothing. Matter of fact, I did, with Preston, I did sneak into Club Med, go along the beach, or swim in the ocean, then come up on their beach like that, and grab somebody's towel and just walk up like you're, you know, that you live there or whatever, walk straight up to the bar, get a beer, you know, sit by the pool, drink a beer or whatever. I think drink like 2 beers and then went straight back out to the water, drop the towel before those pool guys could go, you know, is that guy, do those guys actually live here? Actually, I don't know if Preston, that's right, I don't know if Preston was with me. I think he actually told me how to do it, because, you know, the Jamaican guys were well known, and obviously they show up into the Club Med, they're probably gonna get flagged, like, hey man, no, you know, because again, back then money was, you know, you were rich if you came from America, you know. But it was a pretty sweet place, man. Island life, that's what it's all about. Well, next time I'll tell you about my adventures in the Cayman Islands. Yeah, sad but true. Until then, thanks for watching, and keep watching. We'll get back at you with more adventures from here on the Thai Farm.